So moving from Wuthering Waves, we do want to jump in and discuss with Honkai Star Rail. So we had Boothill launch this week, the Boothill banner drop. So let's get into that next. So looking at Honkai Star Rail this week, Boothill banner dropping, and a couple of new events, but we'll go ahead and start with the character breakdown. And for that, Steve, I'm going to throw it to you to discuss Boothill's kit and what are his mechanics.
Okay. Boothill is a physical hunt character. He's a break DPS, which is somewhat of a new archetype for the game. As everyone knows, enemy characters have toughness bars above them in Honkai Star Rail, where if you deal the same type of physical damage as the enemy has weaknesses, you wear down the toughness bar, and then when you deplete it, the enemy breaks, quote unquote, takes damage, takes an effect for depending on the type of element that breaks them, and they then become a little bit more vulnerable. They basically take 10% more damage, roughly. So Boothill is built around the idea of depleting that toughness bar, putting enemies into that break form, and then through break damage, dealing just a lot of one-shot damage up front. His damage curve is very spiky. And if he can break an enemy, he's going to do a whole lot of damage. Try not to swear there. He's going to do a whole lot of damage. And when he's not breaking enemies, he's going to be very low damage. He's not going to have a very high output in that regard. The way that he manages to break enemies is his skill. What it'll do is it'll put him and whatever opponent he chooses, a single opponent he chooses, into a standoff stance where the enemy is taunted directly to him and he gains bonuses when attacking that enemy. So they kind of want to duel each other basically. And that stance will stay until he either breaks the enemy's toughness or kills the enemy. So if the enemy is already toughness broken, then he can use it on a toughness broken enemy, and when he kills them, then he benefits from a number of different buffs. So the way that you're gonna, or I don't want to go too deep into build right now, but that is his skill. His basic becomes an enhanced basic after he uses his skill. He can use his skill, he immediately advances forward 100%, and can use an enhanced basic that will be his main source of damage. His ult is a single target ult that will apply physical weakness. So if they are already not physical weak, he can make them physical weak, which will then allow his kit to actually function against enemies that aren't physically weak. And it deals some damage as well and some break effect as well. So you're going to want to save his ult for either enemies that are not physical weakness, who do not have a physical weakness. This way you can apply that to them. Or if you're just looking to push something over the edge and break them, you would want to use it then. The upshot of all of this is that, again, his damage chart is a very large spike. He can one-shot a number of bosses if he manages to actually break them. So you want to... His focus is really on weakness breaking enemies, or toughness breaking enemies, and doing a lot of damage through that. With all that said, I guess I'll pass it back over to you, Dave, to go over some build and team info.
Some pretty interesting mechanics with Boothill, like you mentioned, applying the physical weakness with his skill and his ultimate. And so we have a little bit of a unique situation with him, because usually when you get characters like this, you build a set that is the same as the element they are. And in terms of like his best set for what we have available to us at the moment, it's actually going to be the Quantum set, the Genius of the Brilliant Stars, just for the defense shred of that four-piece set that it applies. That's been what's showing the best numbers from the reporting and stuff that I've seen. And then with the second set being the Thief of the Shooting Meteor, which is the break effect set, pretty much one of the basic sets there that you have. So those two sets are going to be number 1 and 2 in terms of the numbers output. We're going with their four-piece set.
Right.
Those
But real
and
quick, what's the statistical difference between those two, though?
very minimal. It is very minimal. It's maybe a 2% difference, if that, from what I'm seeing there. And then you can, if you need some more freedom in terms of some of your substats or some of your main stats, if you are going Thief of the Shooting Meteor, if you do a 2-2 split. Instead of going with the four-piece set, you could go two Thief of the Shooting Meteor and two of the Watchmaker set, or you could do two Thief of the Shooting Meteor and then Messenger Traversing Hackerspace for a little bit of that speed bonus as well if you're not necessarily hitting some of the speed thresholds that you want. There's a very small numbers drop if you utilize that third option there with the Messenger Traversing Hackerspace, but even smaller than the difference between four-piece Genius of the Brilliant Stars and four-piece Thief of the Shooting Meteor. The drop from that to the Messenger of the Traversing Hackerspace is less than 1%. So again, these are all very similar as if we're trying to talk min-maxing. You're really only talking between the top three options, a 3% difference in DPS from the set bonuses themselves and what those mean to his kit. Now, as far as the planetary sets, the best numbers show, or the best performance, I should say, shows when we use the Talia, the Kingdom of Bantry. And I'm sorry, one more quick note on the numbers for the Genius, the Brilliant Stars. That assumes that the enemy has a quantum weakness applied to it. So that is one caveat I forgot to throw in there. If the enemy is weak to quantum units, that is going to be the best output. If does not have a quantum weakness to it, then your best set right now is going to be Thief of the Shooting Meteor. So that can make a little bit of a difference, but it's something I forgot to mention that I wanted to add in there. So again, quantum weak enemies use that quantum set for the Genius of the Brilliant Stars and that defense shred. If they do not have a quantum weakness, then you're going to want to throw in the Thief of the Shooting Meteor, and I will bring up in team comps kind of some things we can do to get around that. So those of you that are familiar with Silverwolf, you'll know what I'll be referencing. But anyway, back to the planetary sets really quickly. Again, I'm assuming you can break the 145 speed threshold. Talia, Kingdom of Banditry is going to be your best set. And even if you can't break that 145 speed threshold, it's still going to be your top option there. Glomoth would be the second option for you, but the Glomoth option is a bit of a drop off. It's a drop off of about 7 to 8%, according to the data, in terms of damage. And this assumes with Glomoth that you have a speed break point of 160 for its peak performance. And if you can't hit 160 speed with Glomoth, the next cutoff would be 135. And there's about a 1 to 2% difference just between those speed thresholds if you're using Glomoth. But if you can't get to 160 and you're going to be looking at 135, then Glomoth. But if you can get to 145, Talia is going to be the way you want to go. A third option along the same lines with Glomoth would be the Rutilant Arena. But those are going to be the planetary sets you're going to want to work with. Now, in terms of stats, excuse me, on the pieces, feet, you're going to want speed. Speed boots, naturally, as with most damaging characters. And then the other specific thing you're going to want to look for is on your rope, you're going to want to look for break effect. When it comes to body, when it comes to planar sphere, you can really kind of go with anything that generally helps DPS. It doesn't necessarily need to be anything specific because he gets crit rate, crit damage kind of already from a lot of his stuff. So he's good to go there. The substats you're ultimately looking for are going to be speed until you can get the break point. And then beyond that, you're going to be looking for break effect. So as long as you can get those two items as substats, speed and break effect, the other two can be whatever to go from there. Now, getting into his light cones, obviously we have his signature light cone being his best for him because it's tailor-made for him. But what's interesting is for the free-to-play options, if you're not going for the light cone, his best is actually going to be a 3-star light cone, adversarial, assuming it's an S5. That'll be his next best. And then your best 4-cost option is going to be the River Flows in Spring. The number differentiation, again, his signature light cone to the adversarial, you're talking probably about a 1% damage difference between his signature and that 3-star. But the difference between the 3-star and then the River Flows in Spring is like 1 to 2% in terms of the damage output. Looking at synergies and team comps, so if you're kind of looking for an all-around team build, some of the best performing ones that the testing has showed has been Boothill, Bronya, Runmei, and Gallagher. if you do have a situation where you have a not quantum weakness character, you can sub out Bronya and put in Silverwolf, or you can sub out Rune May and put in Silverwolf if you don't have Rune May, or Harmony Traveler is a good substitute as well because the boost to break effects that he or she provides, depending on which Traveler you chose. But then Silverwolf is the way to work around to guarantee something is always weak to quantum, and therefore the quantum set would always be the best option on Boothill. So those are those teams there, and then yeah. So to recap the teams again, it's Boothill, Bronya, Runmei, Gallagher for just a good all around team. And if you are using the quantum set and want to guarantee that, and maybe you don't have Runmei, you're going to be looking at Boothill, Silverwolf, Harmony Traveler, and then still Gallagher. So that's going to be Boothill and the Boothill build and kind of what you're looking for. So a bit easier with a lot more flexibility on those substats, which is pretty nice for you to go for. But now I want to jump into the events that we have that just came out. So we have The Legend of the Galactic Baseballer and Clocky's Dream Jolt Memoir.
The only one remains in hands claws are so tight. The only fire exists in brave hearts. Seasons that refuse to change over the years will find their way back on track. We made a choice, go!